The Oakland Athletics played their first game of spring training 2023, following an offseason that saw them trade yet another young core player and former Gold Glove Award winner, and arguably their best offensive player, Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy! It doesn't seem like it's time for baseball yet. I live in Central Valley, California, foothills, east of Stockton, near Sacramento, in that area. And I literally have snow on the ground right now. And I just got done watching the A's take on the Arizona Diamondbacks live. Just doesn't seem right to me. But it is, and we're going to preview the upcoming season. We're also going to talk about some new rules that Major League Baseball is implementing for the 2023 season, right here on the AthleticsStance podcast. I'm Jason Currier, and first off, thank you for listening. And if you could, please click that subscribe button, and don't forget to click that notification bell to receive notification when we post our new stuff. The plan moving forward is during spring, I'm going to post once a week, and then I'll post for opening night. And then the plan moving forward throughout the season is that I'll post at the end of each series. So at the end of each series, I'll then review what just happened as well as preview the upcoming series. And that's how I'll progress through the season. So it's not like I'm going to post on Tuesdays and Thursdays that you guys can count on me on Tuesdays and Thursdays as a schedule. It's going to be more of a flexible kind of schedule moving forward. So once we get past spring and get into the regular season anyway. So again, if you could click that subscribe button and don't forget to click that notification bell, because we're going to be a little bit fluid with how we post once the season kicks off. Let's start out with the new rules in Major League Baseball for the 2023 season. And let's go ahead and start out with the doozy, Susie. Baseball, the timeless sport that is timeless because it doesn't have a clock, now has a clock. It's not a pitch clock. I keep trying to say pitch clock, but I've noticed that they're referring to it as a pace clock more so than a pitch clock. And the rule is you have, with the base is empty, the pitcher has 15 seconds to make the pitch. With runners on, he has 20 seconds to make the pitch. And the batter has to be in the box in a ready-to-hit position addressing the pitcher. He doesn't necessarily have to be in full stance, but he has to be in a position where he can get ready to hit if the pitcher was to pitch at 8 seconds. And if the pitcher violates the pace clock, it's a ball. And if the batter doesn't get in the box and violates the pace clock, it's a strike if he doesn't get in there with 8 seconds left. And I've watched a handful of games now, and one, the pace is a lot faster. And two, the A's game didn't have not a single violation, and I watched the Reds and the Guardians afterwards, and I wanted to see Chad Pinder in the Reds uniform, and I saw one, and the announcer had said that was actually the third of the game, and the one that I saw was in the bottom of the fifth, I believe. So that game was not even into the seventh inning stretch, and they already had 3 after watching the A's game, and they didn't have any for either squad. So the pitcher is also allowed 2 disengagements per at bat. So in other words, say there is a runner on first. Pitcher throws over to first, pick off. Doesn't get him. Pitcher throws over a second time, doesn't get him. Pitcher, now you have 2. without a possible penalty. If the pitcher throws over to first in another pickoff move and doesn't make an out, then it's a balk. So throw over to first, doesn't get him. Throw over to first, doesn't get him. Throw over to first again. You better get him, because if you don't, he's walking over to second base. Batters also have 30 seconds in between at-bats. So first man in the lineup makes an out, does whatever. You have 30 seconds to get that next man up. Get him in the batter's box, and again, he has 8 seconds on the pace clock to be ready to hit. A batter also is given 1 timeout per at bat, and umpires are going to be wearing a device that looks like a wristwatch that is going to buzz when the pace clock expires. So that way the umpires can concentrate their focus on making bad call. Can concentrate their focus on the game and calling balls and strikes, and not have to worry about what that clock says. It'll buzz, and then if it buzzes and things haven't happened, then he knows to make the call. The next new rule in Major League Baseball for the 2023 season that we're going to talk about are shift restrictions. So here's the way this one breaks down. A team has to have 2 infielders on each side of second base. So shortstop has to be on the shortstop side, second baseman has to remain on the second base side. And both infielders have to have both feet on the dirt at the time of the pitch. Umpires are also going to be able to implement the shift restriction rule if infielders are running out of position to basically circumvent the rule and get into a position where they're basically shifted as the pitch is being thrown. The way it was described was there's not going to be any motion defenses allowed. So you can't hurry up and make the shift late. They're not going to allow that either. You can't skirt your way around the rule that way either. Another quirk to the shift restriction rule is you're not allowed to switch infielders. So say a left-handed batter comes up and you want to shift for him, but because you can't shift, you also can't move your shortstop over to second base and your second baseman over to short without a substitution. You can't make that switch. So again, they're trying to get teams away from circumventing the rules and finding their way around the rules and still shifting, basically. So you can't run as the pitch is being thrown to basically shift, and you can't switch your infielders to get the better defensive player on the side that you want to shift to. What you can do is you can shift your outfielders. So let's say that you want to shift you have the left-handed batter again, and you normally would want to shift, but you're not allowed to shift. So you could, if you wanted, if you chose to, you could move your left fielder over to basically be kind of a rover if that's something that you decide to do. I think that they added this to the rule to allow managers, if they were just dead set on I have to shift in some way or else my what'll fall off. I have to be able to shift. You can shift your outfielder and basically make him a rover and push him over to right field and have him play in that kind of area where you would have normally shifted into, if that's what you want to do. Which when I first heard that little loophole, I thought, well, there's no way anybody's going to do that. But if you'll shift an infielder out of third base and basically make him your shortstop and jam up the whole right side of the infield and kind of push him into the outfield, why wouldn't you move your left fielder over and make him the rover in right field. I could see some managers maybe trying that. I don't know. And they'll probably ban that next. So that is something that they can do still currently with the new shift restrictions. And the last rule that is being changed, that is actual gameplay, they're also unbalancing the schedule. So it won't be a situation where the way it was described was Philly's not going to have to wait every 6 years to see Mike Trout in Philly. It was the way that I had heard it. So that's not really anything that interests, sparks my interest level. So I wasn't really going to talk much about that. But the last big change, and I actually think this is going to be this one's a big one, and I think it's one that could be exploited by some teams that want to kind of money ball it up and be ahead of this one. The bases are bigger. They've gone from a 15-inch bag to now an 18-inch bag. And what that means is from home to first and from third to home, the distance is decreased by 3 inches. And from first to second and second to third, it's decreased by 4.5 inches. And my immediate thought is not necessarily on stolen bases, although we'll get to that here in a second. My thought is on all the bang bang plays that you slow down in super slow motion, and you have to wait to see the ball when it's actually in the pocket of the mitten, and is the stuff that they do with the replay now instead of tie goes to the runner. Now all those bang bang plays that are so close and so tight that you got to super slow motion it down and it still just barely gets him or barely doesn't get him. Now that's 3 inches closer when you're running home to first. And when you're going first to second or second to third, it's 4.5 inches closer. Those bang bang plays that are just that close to being an out or that close to being safe. Now it's that much closer to being safe. So advantage offense, big time. And to the point on stolen bases, you have 2 disengagements as a pitcher to hold that runner on. And you have a running clock. So the batter knows, one, that you've only got 2 throws over without the risk of penalty. And 2, he knows generally about when you're going to throw it too. He knows you're not going to just stand there and wait him out and hold the runner by holding the ball and waiting to pitch. And the bases are closer. So how many times have you seen a throw from the catcher to second base trying to get a runner, and it's boom, boom. It's within an eyelash of safe or out or whatever. Well, now it's 4.5 inches closer. So again, advantage offense. The whole pace clock and now pitchers, I noticed in watching the games that I've watched so far, and it's only been a handful of them. The games that I've watched, most pitchers are throwing the ball with 5, 6, 7 seconds left. So the guys that were really working quickly, though, were ready to throw at that 8 seconds when that batter was in the box. And if the batter was in the box sooner than that, they were throwing it. You could tell the guys that would normally want to work quickly anyway, they're working even faster. And the guys that want to kind of slow things down, they're not able to. And it's, to me, I think that the bottleneck is more on the batters than pitchers, because that's what I've noticed more, is that with the batter, he has to be in that box ready to go with 8 seconds left on that clock. That seems to be a bigger pace pusher than the pitchers, because the pitchers aren't draining it down to 2-3 seconds left on the clock before they're throwing. They're throwing with 5, 6, 7 seconds left on that clock. So as soon as that batter's ready, they're ready too. The Oakland Athletics were able to add some bats to the lineup in free agency, signing first baseman and DH Jesus Aguilar from the Miami Marlins, as well as Aledmys Diaz from the dreaded Houston Astros. He's a bit of a utility player. He plays all over the infield and can play out in the outfield too. And speaking of a guy that can play all over the infield and a little bit in the outfield too, the A's also signed from the Milwaukee Brewers, Jace Peterson. I'm pretty sure that Jace and Aledmys Diaz and probably Jesus Aguilar too, they're probably going to be in the lineup most days, I would imagine, in some sort of way. Aguilar, obviously, he can just play first and probably DH more than anything, I would imagine. But Diaz can play all over the place, and Peterson can play all over the place too. So, which really opens some roster flexibility for this team. And I've noticed that over the last couple of years, that the A's seem to really be high on guys like that are flexible guys that can play different positions, that maybe aren't necessarily an everyday third baseman or an everyday shortstop, but can play there and can also play at second and first and out in the outfield. And they seem to be collecting those guys. The A's were also able to get some pitching help in free agency, signing right-handed pitcher out of Japan, Shintaro Fujinami. I'm assuming that he's going to be a part of the starting rotation. They also signed Drew Rosinski and Trevor May to kind of round out the bullpen. So I'm thinking that Fujinami's probably going to be one of the starting five. And speaking of the starting rotation, the A's made a few trades this offseason, including would-be starter AJ Puck. There was word that they were going to kind of stretch him out and get him back into the starting rotation. He was originally a starter. Then they moved him to the bullpen when he had his arm trouble. And then they were going to move him back to being a starter. And then they moved him to the Miami Marlins for JJ Bleday. So much for that, I guess. JJ Bleday is a former number 4 overall pick, I believe, in 2019. He was rated as the top outfielder in that draft. He's awfully young still, being just drafted in 2019. So hopefully it's a situation where both players could use a change of scenery and they get that change of scenery and their careers take off. I mean, AJ Puck definitely could use a change of scenery. I know that much. I don't know enough about JJ Bleday to know if he needed a change of scenery or not, but I know that he was at the major league level last year and he just got drafted in 2019. So they liked him enough to get him up to the majors. I don't know what they saw in him that they didn't like enough to the point where they were willing to trade him, but hopefully he can figure it out here in Oakland. He's definitely going to get an opportunity. They had mentioned during the broadcast today that he might be a guy that we see down in AAA, start the season at AAA, which I kind of think that he's going to win the job. I hope, of course, that he goes out there and he wins the job, but he's going to be given an opportunity. So it's just a matter of what he does with it. And hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully AJ can stay healthy too on the other end. So the A's also traded another left-handed starting pitcher in Cole Irving to the Baltimore Orioles for a prospect. He's a middle infield prospect, Daryl Hernaiz. From what I've seen on Hernaiz, it was a situation where Baltimore was looking to improve their starting rotation, and he's their 15th overall prospect, but he's like their 5th overall shortstop prospect. So they were dealing from an area of strength and looking to improve their starting rotation. So hopefully the A's got their future shortstop out of this, or future second baseman, whatever he ends up being. Hopefully he can develop. And on to the big one. The A's traded arguably their best offensive player last year, former Gold Glove award-winning catcher, still young, Sean Murphy, to the Atlanta Braves. The deal ended up being a 3-team deal by the time everything shook out. Milwaukee ended up getting in the mix. The A's ended up, in the end, they ended up with 3 arms, 2 righties and 1 lefty. They also got a backup catcher with a really cool nickname and a really, really, really fast prospect. The 2 pitchers that they got, the 2 righties, Freddie Tarnick, he pitched today in the exhibition today against Arizona. He looked pretty darn good in the 2 innings that I saw. Rober Salinas is another right-handed pitcher that they got in the deal. And the lefty is Kyle Muller, who I think is probably, along with Tarnick, probably going to compete for one of those 5 starting rotation spots. Hopefully he pitches well enough too. They also got backup catcher Manny Pena. I'm sorry, the Pineapple. He came over. He was the Milwaukee portion that came over to Oakland. So the A's got a backup catcher with a really cool nickname, the Pineapple, Manny Pena. And also the really, really fast prospect, Esteury Ruiz. He's a second baseman, outfielder, had a ton of steals in the minors. I think he's one of those guys that can really benefit from these new rules, really benefit from only 2 pickoff attempts, really benefit from the bases being just a little bit closer to each other. I think players like him could shine with this new. We might actually see stolen bases come back into the major leagues again. Maybe, which would be pretty cool. And the first trade of the offseason was a bit more of a minor one than the Sean Murphy trade. The A's traded Jeff Criswell, the right-handed pitcher, to the Colorado Rockies in exchange for Chad Smith, right-handed pitcher that looked absolutely horrible today. I know it's the first day of spring, and he's been a solid veteran out of the bullpen for years, so hopefully he was just working on some stuff today because he did not look good. The A's also selected a Rule 5 player this year. And again, the Rule 5 guys, they have to be on the roster from the start of the season all the way through the end. So Ryan Noda, the first baseman and power hitter that the A's selected from the Dodgers, is going to get a big look here. He's probably going to make the team. He's probably going to get some at-bats. Hopefully he can hit. He's a big dude. He's going to have a lot of power. And the A's don't really have a lot of that in the lineup. The A's also made a couple of waiver claims. They claimed Brent Rooker, first baseman and outfielder from the Kansas City Royals. They also claimed Yandy Hernandez, the second baseman from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll see. Both those guys, I believe, are non-roster and camp invitees. So we'll see if they can stick. And we're going to close things out with my predictions on who's going to make the final 26-man roster. Again, this was literally the first day of spring today. So this is something that's a list that's probably going to change as I go through this spring training. I noticed in just kind of penciling things out that the A's, again, I mentioned this earlier, the A's have several players that play multiple positions and not only play in the infield, but they also play in the outfield. And I think that versatility is, one, it's intentional in what the front office is looking for. And I also think that it opens up some things like carrying an extra man in the bullpen. because you don't have to have a roster spot for your fifth outfielder because it could be one of your infielders. You know what I mean? So I think that the versatility of this roster really opens a lot of things up for it. And it's a roster that generally provides some opportunities for young guys as it is. So for that to be opened even more, this could be a pretty fun year. We could see some guys come out of nowhere. And my prediction for the starting rotation, I think that Paul Blackburn and James Kaprielian pretty much have spots locked up. I think that health willing, those two guys are going to be a part of the starting rotation. I think that Fujinami is going to end up in one of those spots. And then the other two, I'm not 100% sure on yet. They had mentioned during the broadcast, JP Sears started today. And they had mentioned during the broadcast that JP may play kind of a hybrid role where he's starting, but then in between starts, he can also be your second left-hand arm out of the bullpen. Sam Moll is really the only guy out of the bullpen that's left-handed that has a defined role and that you know that he's going to be a part of that bullpen and he's going to pitch innings and probably heavy innings. You can't really say that about any other left-hander in that bullpen right now. So I think that JP is probably going to do some sort of I think he'll be the fifth starter, and in between starts, he's probably going to be your second left-hander out of the bullpen behind Sam Moll. And then I think it's going to be a battle of a couple of young left-handers. I think Kyle Muller, who they got in the Sean Murphy deal, and Ken Waldenchuk, another young left-hander. He's their number 2 overall prospect. And I think those two are probably going to battle it out for that last spot, again, with Sears basically playing kind of a hybrid role and doing a little bit of bullpen and a little bit of starting. So on to the bullpen. I think that Danny Jimenez probably should be the closer. I think that Trevor may push him and may end up winning that job. But Danny was pretty darn good last year when he was healthy. And that slider was pretty lights out. I think that the A's are in good shape, no matter who the closer is versus who the setup man is. I think that I think on my predictions here, I have them carrying 8 pitchers in the bullpen instead of 7. The reason being is I think that Jake Fishman, who's a non-roster invitee, I think he has a chance to make the club again, simply because Sam Moll is really the only left-hander that you know is going to be a part of that bullpen. Other than that, they don't have another lefty other than JP Sears. So I think Jake Fishman has a real good chance of making this squad. Again, he's a non-roster invitee, so it would be one of those camp stories. So Zach Jackson looked really good last year as a setup man. They tried him a little bit as a closer when Jimenez went down. I didn't like him in that role. I didn't think that was his best role. He looked better as a setup guy, I thought. But he had a hell of a year. So hopefully he can continue with that. And I think that the bullpen's going to be rounded out with Acevedo, Sam Moll, Drew Rosinski, Chad Smith. So all in all, we're looking at Danny Jimenez, I think is going to be the closer, but Danny Jimenez, Trevor May, Zach Jackson, Domingo Acevedo, Sam Moll, Drew Rosinski, Chad Smith, and I think Jake Fishman's going to be the 8th man in that rotation, or in the bullpen. Just my thought. Normally they only carry 7 guys in the bullpen, but because of the lack of a left-handed arm, I think they might carry a second lefty, maybe. Catcher, I think that they're going to carry 2 catchers this year. In years past, they've carried 3. I think they could carry 3 instead of carrying the 8th man in the bullpen. They could go 7 guys in the bullpen and carry 3 catchers. The reason why I think they might do that is because Shea Langoliers is such a good hitter that when he's not behind the plate, he's probably going to be at DH. And if you've got both your catchers in the lineup, that's generally not the best idea. So I think that maybe they might carry 3 catchers instead of carrying the 8th man in the bullpen. On the infield, there are 6 infielders that I think they're going to carry. I think it's going to be Ryan Noda, who is their Rule 5 guy again. Jesus Aguilar, the free agent that they picked up to play first base. Tony Kemp, Aledmus Diaz, Jace Peterson, and I think Nick Allen is going to be the quasi backup shortstop. I think Aledmus Diaz can play. His ability to play all over the place opens things up for guys like Nick Allen that really Nick should be your starting shortstop. If Nick can hit, he would definitely be your starting shortstop. And even then, I really don't. It's one of those situations where I really don't know if they've got the idea that they're going to have Diaz be their everyday shortstop. I don't know. His ability to play all over the place really opens up a lot of things. And you can say the same thing for Jace Peterson. He can play all over the infield too, and even in the outfield too. So, outfielders, the 5 outfielders that I've got, again, this is literally day 1 of spring, but the 5 outfielders that I think that they're going to go into the regular season with, I think Seth Brown, again, he's another guy that's an infielder. He plays first base. He can DH. Of course, anybody can DH, but he plays first base. And out in the outfield, I think he's probably going to be your starting left fielder or right fielder, one of the corner spots. And you're probably going to see Aguilar at first most days. But who knows? And again, the versatility of Seth Brown allows the A's to keep some things open. But I've got him as one of my 5 outfielders. Ramon Hernandez as another outfielder. JJ Bleday, I think, is going to make this squad. I think he's going to do something with this opportunity. And again, with the nice, fresh scenery, I think he's going to do well. I've got Christian Pache making the squad. Christian is out of options. So this is it for Christian Pache. I really hope that dude can figure it out. That is a big, strong young man, athletic dude, can just play a hell of a center field with the best of them. The man just can't seem to hit. And I don't think he's ever going to be a 300 hitter. But I'd really like it if he could hit 200. And he can't really seem to do that yet. So before we worry about him being a 240 hitter, let's get him to 200 first. And the last spot, this one was kind of tough. I think that this could either go to Jonah Bride, who's another guy that can play all over the infield, plays multiple positions, can play in the outfield too, or Connor Capel. Connor looked really good at the end of last year. I was really upset when they waived Stephen Piscotty to bring him in, but I remember literally saying then that it would be very Oakland Athletic of them if they plucked this guy who's basically a career minor leaguer, couldn't quite seem to break through with St. Louis and get past AAA, and then they bring him in. He looked pretty good at times last year. He showed some flashes. The dude can hit, and he plays a pretty good good right field. So I've got Connor Capel making the squad and being basically that 26th man. So again, I'm probably going to adjust these. This was literally day one of spring. I'm going to be posting once a week through spring training, and then I'm planning on posting for opening day, and then beyond that, I'll post at the end of the series and review the series that just happened, as well as preview the upcoming series. That's the way things are going to break down. So that's my schedule moving forward. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you guys. Again, if you could please click that subscribe button. Don't forget to click that notification bell, because I am going to be posting kind of fluidly. It's not going to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday I post kind of thing. It's going to be I post at the end of each series kind of thing. So it's going to be a bit fluid. So if you could please click that notification bell. Thanks, you guys. Much appreciated. Love you guys. Good night.